I'm Andrea. I'm going to be talking about digital advertising for job postings. As Teresa mentioned off the top, I am the owner of Swansea Communications. I've been in the Valley for about a decade. I've been in marketing for more than 2 decades now. Gosh, that time goes fast. Obviously, marketing is mostly completed in the digital realm these days, and I have experience with all types of campaigns for digital advertising, from selling golf to selling hotel rooms to you name it, all different kinds of things. Specifically, I have not done, well, that's not true. I have done a recruitment campaign, but I broke a lot of the rules that are in my presentation today. So this has been good for me to go through as an exercise as a business owner and tune up my own skills. So let's jump into this. So you're looking to hire someone, you put it on Facebook, and good to go, right? Applications are going to start rolling in and you'll get that job filled in no time. Or maybe not. Maybe you're not that lucky. As Caitlin mentioned, job market is extremely tight. I know I don't have to tell anybody that. So what else can we do besides just the behemoth that Facebook is? So we're going to talk about, how to use digital advertising to attract job seekers. And then the benefits of a careers page on your website as well. So it's twofold here, our approach. So let's start with what is digital advertising. It's pretty self-explanatory, but this is the definition I found online. It's nice and long and detailed. I won't call it boring, but it is dry, of course. So social media, email, search engines, mobile apps, affiliate programs, doesn't necessarily apply here. Websites, of course, are in the realm of digital advertising. And then how you push all that information out from your website to get people to come to your website is, of course, a lot of digital advertising. So there's 4 main types that we're going to go through today: social media, paid search, native advertising, and display advertising. We'll start with social media. So we did talk about Facebook. Obviously, when you create a job that you want to fill, you're going to post it on your business page, assumably you have one. You're going to share it from the page to your personal feed. You're probably going to get your employees to share it out. Your friends hopefully will share it out. You'll share it into local groups here in the Valley and afar, depending on where you're actually looking to hire people from. And then, of course, there's Facebook Jobs, which is a section within Facebook for just exactly that, jobs. If you haven't discovered this because you haven't posted a job on Facebook, just go to facebook.com/jobs or on the desktop version of Facebook. On the menu, you go to the See More and then scroll down. Facebook makes it pretty easy to use their platform because they want you to use their platform. Instagram, obviously, much of the same. So you're going to post it to your feed. Maybe make a story from the post, or get personal and make a video story or a reel. If you don't know what all those things are, go and Google it. It's Instagram. It has a lot of different ways you can now share content on their platform. Obviously, hashtags are important also on Instagram. You can research before you post what hashtags are relevant for the position you're hiring and just for hiring in general, because there'll be a couple of different categories that you'll want to investigate. You'll also want to add specific ones to the role itself and or the geographical location where you are, because you never know what people are searching under. LinkedIn, another behemoth, and depending on the type of position you're hiring, very applicable or somewhat applicable. So if you've been on LinkedIn, you know it's mainly a professional social networking platform, but it does carry SEO weight. So the more places you have your job advertised or posted, however you want to label it, the better you're going to do in results in general across the internet. So again, you've got your personal feed, you've got probably maybe a company page, maybe not a company page. You can tag other businesses, you can tag other people, just like you can on Facebook. And then there is the whole side of LinkedIn that's built for recruiting in general. And we're going to get into that later on. But that's under me when you log in. And then on the drop-down menu, there's a job posting account that can take you all through all the steps of posting a position on LinkedIn. Then we have the other two, maybe less well frequented by, definitely myself, I don't know what the rest of you. TikTok and Snapchat. So TikTok, in May of this past year, they launched a pilot program called TikTok Resumes. It was designed to help people find jobs on TikTok and connect them with companies looking to find candidates. It was also meant to help brands using TikTok as a recruitment channel, obviously. They only tested it for about a month, and it was actually a separate platform altogether from TikTok itself. So didn't really find anything on the results of how it went. So we'll see if it resurfaces through TikTok or not. This company is fairly progressive in terms of what they come out with, so we'll see. But you can also check the platform if you're on it for what is called career talks. And that's a TOK, career TOK at the end, which is a quickly growing subculture of career themed videos put out by employers and job seekers. And then there's also the hashtag TikTok resumes, which you can search for or use if you're making a TikTok for hiring. I definitely suggest that if your organization is on TikTok, you'd want to use that platform just like any of the other ones listed here on the page to get the word out to your followers and anyone searching on the platform for a job. Just like on Instagram, hashtags are huge on TikTok, so don't forget that. Okay, so Snapchat. This is one I'm going to freely admit I'm super not familiar with. I've been on the platform, but not used it extensively. So here's what I found when I was doing some research. Snapchat is basically a way to do social recruiting, just like all the other platforms. But here you would want to maybe let an employee take the reins via Snapchat takeover of your account for the day. So followers of your account could see what a typical day is like. This sort of makes it relatable, makes it fun, gives that sort of behind the scenes look and keeps it from being salesy. You can also Snapchat events that you have with your staff, like team building or holiday parties. This lets potential employees see what they can be part of if they worked with you or for you. Like I mentioned, show people what really goes on in your organization. So rather than giving the account as a takeover, take over yourself and show how do people dress? How do you guys celebrate birthdays? Do you have any special traditions at your organization? Do you have an after work ritual on Fridays or whatever the end of the week is? Just, whatever is unique to the culture at your organization. You can also post in Snapchat's Discover section and give exclusive content, which, as an example, you could give followers an exclusive snap of jobs that are coming up so that they receive the information first, because who doesn't love a heads up about new things to come? Get a Snapchat story with someone's resume. That was a note I wrote down. I don't entirely know, because I said I'm not on the platform, what that means, but I'm sure if you're on Snapchat that you do. So I'm sure that you can send and receive snaps with resumes. So that's how you get people to apply and then follow up, maybe in a more traditional method for the rest of your recruiting process. That's a really quick fly through on social media. Obviously, there's tons of stuff you can explore and try, but those are the basics you'd want to cover off, aside from just throwing out one post on Facebook and hoping for the best. Then, of course, there's the behemoth that is paid advertising. All of the things I mentioned so far would be considered organic in nature on these platforms. And then there's the paid side of what you can do on all the platforms. Obviously, every platform has the ability to spend your money. That's why they're there. So I'm just going to touch lightly on, starting with Facebook. So on Facebook, should you boost the post that you did, or should you create an ad for the job? Anybody want to weigh in the chat on what they think you should do before I get into this one? Boost versus paid ad. Let me see if I can see the chat. Here we go. Teresa's voting paid ad. Don't be scared to vote. Paid ad, boost. Paid ad. Okay, you guys are catching on. So a paid ad is going to perform better than a boosted post. There's so much more you can do to generate attention on Facebook than simply boosting. And let me be very clear, boosting is not advertising. Boosting, the way most businesses do it, the way Facebook makes it super easy to do it, and they kind of not trick you, but they lead you in this pathway, is just considered vanity advertising. So boosting posts is not the same because it only actually offers a fraction of the options and really sometimes ends up wasting your money. So with an ad on Facebook, you have more choices for the ad objective. You can target specific users much easier. You can choose where on the platform your ad shows up. And believe me, there are more ways for your ad to be shown than you can even imagine. You can cross advertise, I should say, on Instagram, which saves you time and puts all your metrics in one spot. You can put your ads on a schedule. It's really quite endless, the ways you can tailor the ad to show up. The entire premise of digital marketing is that it's trackable and that it's very strategic and precise. And that's what you get with Facebook advertising versus boosting a post. Boosting a post, there's a few options in there, but it's nowhere near as detailed as actually creating an ad. So if you're going to go there, check out the ads. There's tons of tutorials from Facebook and all over the internet to help you out with that. So the next one we're going to talk about, slight advances here, is paid search. And this is going to be dependent on your budget, the role you're hiring, how far and wide you're searching for candidates, a myriad of things. And of course, Google Adwords is the biggest paid search advertising platform there is out there. So I'm just going to, chat about AdWords briefly. But before I do, does anybody know off the top of their head, and Caitlin, you're not allowed to post for this one, in the chat, tell me how much you think it costs on average to hire an employee, and bonus points if you want to take a guess on average how long it takes to hire an employee. So how much does it cost? Not just in terms of advertising, but the whole sort of onboarding process, and how long do you think it takes on average? This is a Canadian average. If it helps for a parameter, I'm going to tell you it's under a few months, okay? It's under $5,000 and it's more than 2 weeks. Those are my two. Teresa's got $1,000 in 15 hours. What are you hiring for? All right, well, I won't keep you in suspense. So on average, what I found was that it costs just over $4,000 in terms of your time, energy, advertising, training, downtime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to hire and bring on a new employee. And the average was 42 days, which for some positions seems low and some positions seems high. So again, it's an average. But that in mind, I go back to point number one. What's your budget for hiring? It's not enough to just throw the ad out there, spend a couple of bucks on, one or two posts in the Pioneer. You might need to look more deeply, spend more freely, depending on what you're hiring for. So let's jump into Google AdWords. What are the benefits? It's fast and efficient. You're going to be where people are looking. It can be budget friendly, and there's not a ton of competition in the recruitment world, depending on what words you're using. So Google's AdWords is king because Google loves Google. I will say this over and over again. Google loves their own products. Google loves it when you use their products, and the more you use and the more you participate, the more they love you. Google loves Google. Also, 70% of job searches start on Google. So why not be where people are looking? So there's two ways to rank with Google: organic SEO and paid search, which is what we're talking about today. But let me just touch on organic SEO. This comes from the content on your website, which most of you would know, and we're going to talk about it later on. But this approach takes quite a bit of effort and really informed strategy. It will take time to start seeing results with organic SEO. So if you want to move up in the ranks faster, you should consider investing in paid search ads. So like I just mentioned, you can skip the hard work of developing a long-term organic SEO strategy to get your results shown quicker. You can take job seeker behavior into account. So you're meeting them where they already are. Like I said, people are starting searches on Google, so you may as well be paying to be where they're looking. It can be budget friendly. So I've spent as little as $2 a day on an AdWords campaign. I've spent as much as $20 or $30 a day. Really depends on what your objectives are, how long your campaign's going to be, what AdWords or keywords you're bidding on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're not going to get into all of that today. So like I mentioned, there's not a lot of people in the recruitment marketing that are actually investing time, effort, and resources in AdWords. So this is going to help you stand out from the crowd and put you top of page. What are some of the drawbacks? Obviously, they're listed here. So you do have to have a budget. You need to be ready to commit to at least a month campaign, if not longer. As I mentioned, it takes 42 days to hire. You need to consider how far geographically you want to search for people, which keywords you're going to pick. As I mentioned, is all going to impact your spend. The learning curve sometimes for Google AdWords can be steepish. It's definitely an aggressive grind. Because Google wants to help you, which is great. But the bad news is that they're going to give you suggestions and tips for things you don't necessarily need to do or want to do. And these tips can impact your campaign if you make the wrong choices or try out too many experiments at one time. Given that you don't have 6 months probably to onboard or hire someone, you don't want to try out all the things that they can throw your way. So again, be knowledgeable in what you're doing. Maybe watch a few videos, talk to a paid professional, or hire someone to help you out with it, whatever you need be if you're going to go down this route. And we've all seen what an ad looks like, but just for a refresher, they always are marked with the word ad and they show up at the top of the page. All right, moving on to native advertising. So here's your what a native ad, a native ad is like what an advertorial used to be in a newspaper, if everyone's familiar with that. So it integrates high quality content into an organic looking experience on any platform. Basically, you can't tell if it's an ad or if it's an article. That's what native advertising is. There's 3 different types listed there. Again, it's going to be dependent on the budget, the role, and how far and wide you're searching for people. Why would you use native advertising? It does tend to get higher click-through rates, definitely than paid search. Paid search can have really low click-through rates, and it will have 53% on average more views than a display ad. And they're effective because they let you tap into content-driven advertising, meaning your ad will be where someone is looking for the information or the position that you're advertising. So it's matchmaking at its best, but it's dependent on those 3 factors of budget, role, and how far and wide you're searching for candidates. And what I mean there is that if you're looking really locally for someone, running a native advertising campaign on a huge platform is not going to be the right fit for you. So keep in mind that these are just the whole gamut of options that I'm talking about today, and it may or may not be right for what you're hiring for. Display advertising is essentially what it says. So it's an ad with an image shown on a digital device or a platform. So I just popped in an example there. Well, then you might ask yourself, so what's the difference between this type of an ad and a native ad? So display ad is more traditional in its appearance, content placement, and performance when you're trying to reach multiple audiences at the same time that don't behave in the same way online. A native ad is for storytelling and brand building, where one ad can reach all of your audience members. So typically with a display ad, you have a variety of sizes and versions of the same ad that are developed for your overall campaign that fit on different spaces within a myriad of different websites. So it's not as complex as it sounds, but you do have to have a few different versions of the same type of ad with the same calls to action so that it's consistent. So when people see it, they begin to recognize it. But if you're considering display advertising, here are some questions you might want to ask yourself before you get started. So what types of websites would work well for your job posting? Are there any associations or industry websites that I could work with? Because it's going to narrow down your audience, perhaps give you a better price point, or at least you know that the spend you do with a very targeted website, like one for an association or industry, might give you a better return on your spend because you're talking to, well, you're preaching to the choir, right? And then what's another good fit? Local news or other popular local sites. So, here in the Columbia Valley region, it could be Eno. I always say their name wrong. Eno. Where are people going constantly? That's where you want to put yourself. So just like I started talking about Google AdWords, you always want to keep in mind, where is my audience? Where could my audience be? And that's where you want to place your ads, obviously, so that you're in front of them. All right, I'm going to jump into email marketing. I call this the forgotten older sister or the spinster of digital advertising because people tend to gloss over it, but it is still digital and it is still a way of advertising or marketing to people. Basically, if you have a database of email addresses, you should use it. Whether you're sending a newsletter or you have a list of people who are interested in your company in some way, general information, you should alert them to new jobs. They're part of your audience. They believe in your brand. They know who you are, and you never know who they know, right? This is the whole premise behind social media, is that you never know where you can spiral out to. Email marketing gets right in front of this audience and puts a message clearly in front of them, so that they can share it out. You may do a regular newsletter and it's as simple as tacking it on the bottom. You might create a specific campaign just for the just for the job that you're advertising. Let's see, what else do I have here? So I'm not going to go through all the different types because there's a lot of content here. I'm just looking at my notes to see if there's anything we haven't already talked about. Basically, yeah, you've got a captive audience, so you may as well use it because they're not going to cost you anything to do advertising to this group. For me, it's really a no-brainer. Yes, your box might be full of all kinds of stuff that you don't ever open, but when it's the right thing at the right time, that's when you can't measure. You don't know when something's going to hit people at the right time. So it's worth sending because it doesn't cost you anything. But there are things to consider when you're designing a marketing campaign. How many emails are you going to send? How long or short a time do you have to hire someone? What type of content will you include? You want to make sure you have a compelling subject line. You definitely want to make sure you're complying with Canadian hiring laws, also Canadian anti-spam laws. So do a bit of research and planning, just like you would with any part of the campaign before you jump into just sending out a random email. You want to have a clear call to action, just like you would in any kind of advertising. Yeah, could go on and on. All right, let's talk about the behemoth that is Indeed. Is Indeed digital advertising? Yes and no. It's organic because you can post on there, but they also have sponsored, so technically can turn into advertising. So whether you pay to sponsor or not is up to you, but why would you? So because of Indeed's reach, they get 100 million resumes and over 200 million visitors per month. So this is a massive beast. Search engines love Indeed. So you'll see good results from Indeed in a variety of layouts when you do a search for any type of a job. The benefits are pretty self-explanatory. Sure, most of you have used it. I've used it. The drawbacks. All right, let's get into this. So did you know that Google has a jobs portal? So Google, like I said, loves Google. So they're not one to miss out. This is something to check out if you haven't already, the Google Jobs site. Obviously, their results are always going to show up as close to the top of page as possible. They would be second to a paid ad. However, depending on your budget, whether you can get that first spot for a paid ad is another unknown. So good to check out jobs.google.com. LinkedIn, we touched on briefly as well. A little bit different audience on LinkedIn. I tend to find it mainly like white collar-ish jobs, mid-level to senior. But if you have a company page, it's a great place to post. And then you can look into the advertising there. Post for free on Indeed. I'm sure we've all done this. Due to the heavy traffic and thousands of jobs being listed daily, free job postings get lost very easily. But for small businesses, it may seem like paying to sponsor your job is out of reach. However, what I found is that it's generally 25 cents to $1.50 per click. Per click, whereas LinkedIn can be 10 to 20 times that price just because of their platform. So it really comes down to what you're hiring for in your budget. Again, I know I sound like a broken wheel. If you've posted on Indeed, you know what I mean by the last bullet point, the quality of applicants. You're going to get all kinds of stuff coming in. So to be sure to indicate all of the job requirements when posting to try and ensure you get the best quality applicants and not a load of spam. This slide just touches briefly on Indeed versus LinkedIn. I think I've talked about a majority of this. Both really big, but Indeed is bigger in terms of volume. And Indeed is built as a jobs board, whereas LinkedIn is built as a social network platform. You'll see the word meta search engine here. What's a meta search engine? It just means that Indeed scours the World Wide Web and aggregates job postings from thousands of websites into its own site, along with everything you post. So that word meta scares people these days. Think of it as mega. It's a huge search engine for jobs. I'm not going to go on because, well, we all know what Indeed is. All right, LinkedIn advertising. So within LinkedIn's platform, they have all the types of digital advertising that I started with at the very beginning of the presentation. Sponsored content, sponsored messaging, text ads, dynamic ads, different names, same principle. So sponsored content's like a native ad. Sponsored messaging is like email marketing. It's actually direct messaging into people's inbox on LinkedIn. Text ads are like Google Adwords, and dynamic ads are basically display ads. So there's lots to pick from. You can spend a lot of money. They do say that they have up to 50 times higher click-through rates than an average recruitment ad. I have not tried a recruitment ad on this platform, so I cannot comment. I've tried other ads and found them to be pricey because you can hone in on your audience so tight, like who you want to market to. It can be worthwhile. But like I said, I have not run a recruitment ad on LinkedIn. So just like a Facebook ad campaign, there's objectives, there's geographic, education, interest, demographics that you can pick from. Then you can pick the ad formats. You could pick your budget, your schedule. It's really, really, really customizable, just like Facebook ads, but a different audience. So you really need to spend the time to sit down and figure out which one's right for you. There's definitely lots of information on LinkedIn's site, and I'm sure courses you can take to figure out if it's the right place for you to advertise. And I know we don't have a ton of time when we're doing this types of stuff, but as I'll get into in a couple of slides, it's really worth your time to investigate before you take action. I'll just leave it there. Okay, careers page on your website. All of these bullets are basically what you need to know, what goes behind them. So it's a very easy thing to set up a page, but it's also I feel one of the most important. Some people think websites are passé, but they still have a place and a purpose. So it's absolutely crucial to have a careers page on your website. Whether you have an openings or not, it should be there and you should keep it up to date. A career page reduces a complex way of hiring and makes it much easier for you to showcase your job requirements. It also saves you or your staff from getting emails, calls, questions about how to best apply for jobs. Yes, most people know how to apply for jobs, but you're always going to get people who are looking for another way around. So if you make it very clear how to apply, then it's easy to tell people if you do get inquiries where to go, politely, of course. Your own career page might save you hundreds of dollars of your precious time, which you have been spending on various job consultancies. Well, who knows if you're hiring consultancy, but basically reduces the time and cost of hiring for you. It also gives you the opportunity to save high profile or particularly attractive resumes to build a priority database of pre-screened top talent for future use. Careers page builds trust with those that view it. Whether it's a customer, an applicant, employees, it shows your growth, it shows your brand, it shows who you are as an organization. Sorry, building a great organization, that just leads into building your brand. Basically, that's one of the underlying most important things of why you still have a website, because yes, you can show your brand through social media, but it all links together and it should be all singing from the same song sheet. So by putting a careers page, you're showing the internal brand, if you will, of what it's like to be part of your organization. Let me just see what we have else on here, because I know I've taken a lot of time already. Oh, right, SEO and keywords. So as Caitlin talked about, you do need to obviously create a job description. Within the job description, you should be writing it with keywords in mind. What are keywords? Keywords would be what your candidates would be looking for a job. These are the same keywords you would then repurpose and use in your AdWords campaigns, your social media postings, on your careers page. to ensure that everything you're doing is focusing on getting that target audience who wants the job or the type of position that you have to offer. These are the same keywords that you would be bidding on, and it would run throughout your whole campaign. All right. Making a plan. So some bullet points I just quickly threw together here. So like I said, you want to stop and take the time to make a plan and think about the overall scope of all the places you could be, but where should you be? So where should you advertise? How much are you willing to spend? Where do the people you want to hire visit on the internet? What sets you apart from others like you? So other organizations like you, what's your unique selling proposition? Why would I want to work for you? Because that's what it really comes down to these days is candidates want to know is what's in it for me, not just the rate of pay, but what's it going to be like? Why do I want to work with you? Just like any good advertising or marketing campaign, we always sit down and make a plan first, whether it's, pages and pages of details or even just a higher overarching. You really want to have a sense of where you're going to go and how you're going to get there, and then measure along the way. That's my next slide. Sorry. So keep track of what worked. So how much did you spend? Where did you spend it? How many applications did you get from each tactic or each type of advertising or each place that you mentioned or posted the job? How many clicks did you get on your careers webpage and then onto the job posting itself? What I mean there is, yes, you might have a careers page and you have your positions listed, but I would suggest that you would link the postings off of that page so you can see how many people are actually interested in each specific position that you have listed. And then the last thing I've got here is how long did it take for the right applicant to apply, just so that you know for future reference. I'm kind of a metrics, not geek, but metrics is a huge part of marketing, and you want to know where you're spending and what you're getting for it as a small business owner, any size business really. So you need to know what your return on that investment is in terms of your time, who you hired, all that kind of stuff. And it's equally as important to know what didn't work, because not everything's going to work every time. And if it's your first time wading into the, digital advertising for jobs realm, then it might take some testing. And unfortunately, testing does take a little bit of time and energy and dollars out of your pocket, but it can be very worthwhile down the road and for future advertising, job advertising campaigns. All right, I know I flew through that, but let me know what your questions are, either in the chat or come on live, and I will stop. This is where you can find me. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a website. I don't have a careers page for that company, but I do on other company sites that I'm involved with. And yeah, happy to take your questions.